I'd like to call the meeting to order for the July 18th, 2023 meeting this evening of the Planning Board. I'd like to call to order and the roll call for this evening. I'd like to start to my right and say your name and present.
Travis Day, present.
Sidney Sandy, present.
Larry Dukes, present.
Meg Fielding, present.
Cynthia Wiley, present.
So we have a quorum.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I'd like the members of the board to review and let us know if we have any changes to our minutes from the June 20th meeting. Does anybody have any questions, anything to add, change to those minutes? Everybody good with those minutes?
Yep.
Been reviewed? I'd like to ask for a motion to approve minutes.
I move that we approve the minutes as presented.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Unanimous? All right, this evening we have three items, new business items to be presented. Tim Jones, I believe, is our senior planner, going to be presenting all three of those. First one is the Downtown Master Plan 2023 update. Tim, the floor is yours.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I just wanted a few brief comments before we get started. This is a fairly big project that was directed by Town Council, and staff has had a lot of challenges along the way with this, including the AC not working this afternoon, so we do apologize for that. It looks like we're in good shape, but there is overflow rooms where we'll be streaming if folks start to wander in and we get a little too full. I just want to thank the planning staff. They have overcome a lot of challenges. They've made a lot of tweaks. They've done it quickly. They've been able to work, late nights, not even asking any questions, and really just a get it done attitude. So I appreciate the staff. I appreciate the board for actually reading this huge packet. And then I'm really excited to see the folks that receive the notices and are interested enough to come out tonight. And we're interested to hear from you. We want to hear your perspective on this plan. And we want to do so in a slow fashion. This meeting tonight is not to vote on this item, to try to get it adopted as quickly as possible. We really want to make it the best that we can, and we value your input in that. So thank you for being here.
Thank you, Brandy. Appreciate that. Tim, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Brandy. Thank you, board. And I was instructed to speak into the mic, so we won't have any video difficulties. So pardon me as I adjust to that. Again, this is not just an update to the plan. This is a plan that needs to be implemented. Making sure I'm not speaking too closely here. And in order to be implemented, there's a couple parts to it. Let me advance the slide. As you see, there's three parts to it. The main plan, which we're calling, it just happens to have a project number 2023-0098. This is an update to the 2006 plan, and it will also override. It'll be in updates later if adopted, and will complement the comprehensive plan. So as a plan is adopted, we have to implement it. And so thank you. There happens to be, as part of that, building the framework is part of the UDO update. The UDO is our Unified Development Ordinance, and we must put those edits within that framework before we can even think of proposing the rezoning for a vote. And so those three are playing together at the same time. So that's kind of a snapshot of just how those three work together. Now for the first of the three cases, the master plan update report. So this is to consider the adoption for the main plan that was updated. Town council had requested an update and funded the update for this plan. There was a consultant that went along with this. The purpose for the plan was to update, make the plan more current. It was 2006. But the plan in general, downtown plans provide a long range, just similar to the comprehensive plan. They can be considered 10 to 15 years as a general number. Part of the plan was to update information and provide recommendations. This is a policy tool and guide for decision making, as similar to the comprehensive plan. And so, as part of the analysis, it was time to build on the 2006 plan. It had and contained priorities such as the improvements to Indian Trail Road, which is already a project now, Complete Streets, and it is already in the process of design and implementation, and will be going under construction. The other priority that was in the previous plan was future connector road extension from Old Monroe to 74, and that's part of the current Chestnut Parkway extension project. That's moving forward. And open space areas in downtown was another priority, and there's now Crossing Paths Park and new plans being looked at for Chestnut Park expansion. So as part of the study, they identified a downtown area, looking at current information, current plans. You see in the southwest, the part of that finger that's now coming out in the southwest is the Chestnut extension. So as part of the analysis and details, there was a open house public meeting as part of the process. The consultant came with staff and held a meeting for input. As part of that input, there was a visual preference survey as well as the other boards that people could make comments on. As analysis in the report continued, they identified plan principles. They were based on a framework of the Main Street America's 4-point approach. And priority 1, the densifying downtown for commercial and housing. And principle 2, improving the quality of life for existing residents and attract younger professionals. Principle 3, upgrade downtown infrastructure, including roads, utilities, and to make redevelopment attractive. And principle 4, steer Indian Trail economic development through continued planning. So outcomes of that analysis and some of the recommendations, examination of land uses, zoning designations, and development patterns showed the limitations that were in the downtown overlay. And the limitations were further complicated by its relationship with a district that was Central Business District. The Central Business District, with that overlay on top of it, limited and/or complicated things for future, as development comes in, and as we dealt with customers coming in for requests. As part of the details that came out of the concept was a core and a transition area. It was identified that there would be a high-density central area right in the middle of downtown where people can walk to and live and work and play. And then there was a transition district outside of that still had a higher density, but not as dense as the core, and to help make a transition from outside of downtown into the core. So here's a map from the study. This was a connectivity and infield concept map. This is shown in the report, and it also shows the here shows in blue this downtown outline you saw before becomes the transitional area that I was talking about, and of course the core in the middle is the green line. And then in the report, this also showed some proposed roadway connections that could possibly be made in the future when the time is right. The next three renderings that are shown are what the downtown could become with a higher density. Facades are not shown so that you can focus on the location and form of the buildings. But these were three renderings that were provided. This is looking north across the existing, the white Presbyterian Church. This is looking west behind the library. And there's the railroad tracks there, Indian Trail Road. Then this is looking north across the existing Presbyterian Church. I don't know if that note's correct. Yeah, I think this is looking southeast. Sorry about that. But that's back down here, looking back in the other slightly different angle than the previous, but still the railroad tracks and Indian Trail Road. So that is the report portion of the presentation. Now for the UDO amendment request. So as I mentioned before, as part of the passing of the master plan, the UDO is the tool that's used to set standards for development and requirements. Several edits must be made within that framework. Here are some highlights of those. As I mentioned in the first bullet there, many edits must be made just for the removal of the two that we're taking out, the Central Business District and the downtown overlay. Second chart there shows the proposed new districts, creating a category for those and deleting the other items. So this is just a short little comparison of some of the downtown lot standards. The lot area minimum will be no minimum for any of the 3 districts that are going to be there. I didn't mention it before, but the downtown transitional district on the perimeter, it's also going to be split into residential as part of the execution of the plan. And the lot area per dwelling unit, there is none for the core and the transitional district, but for the residential portion, it's going to be 8,000 square feet. And lot frontage, there's going to be no requirement for a width for lot frontage for the core and for the transitional, and for residential, it's 50 feet. There are some other details in the report and information that'll be posted, but these are the primary items for the standards for lots. Table of permitted uses. Changes in that are shown for each of the districts.
Can you enlarge that?
I don't know that I can enlarge this one. Let me go out a second. If you'd bear with the speed of this opening up. Yeah.
Okay, while Tim's doing that, I did want to share, there's some cold water bottles outside of, right outside the council chambers if you'd like to help yourself. If anyone gets too hot, it is a little bit cooler downstairs in the overflow. If you just want to exit out, and we will show you downstairs there, and there's a YouTube streaming of the meeting. I just don't want anybody to get too hot on us. Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. So I tried to blow this up. It's in a separate file. But as part of this, the edits were made in the title for the districts, and the CBD that was being deleted transitions pretty well over to the core. So I went ahead and put the revisions to the downtown core district, DCD, in the column for this revision report under the CBD. As for the downtown overlay, it transitioned well into the downtown transitional district, which will have the multifamily residential components as well as the commercial businesses, everything other than the single family that was split off. And this is a new, for the single family, this column was inserted. But this table is online. It's available to review. And it covers, you only saw a clip of the first page, but it goes several pages as it is in the UDO for multiple uses. And you can look up the uses you're concerned with, or you can contact us, planning staff in the office, and we can help you, make sense of this chart, and you can talk to us about the areas you're concerned with and where it falls in the chart. So it just shows you how long this chart is, and I can't cover each and every one of them, but we can definitely answer questions. If you give us a call or email us, we'll be happy to share with you your information.
So I have a quick question. Could you tell us what the headings stand for, the NBD and GBD and so forth?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
That's a good question. Not only does the CBD, which is the Central Business District that we're deleting, we're putting downtown core district there. NBD is the Neighborhood Business District,
Okay.
and nothing's changing with the others. GBD is General Business District.
Okay.
So it kind of gets more intense as you go across the line. So neighborhood businesses aren't as intense as general businesses, and then you have regional business district. You find a lot of those around Highway 74, and so they're more intense type of uses,
Sure.
but that's regional business district. And then the Village Center is another overlay like the downtown was, but the Village Center overlay is on the land use, the zoning maps. And it's an area that will lay over these base districts, and there'll be other requirements as it's kind of its own retail center, its hub. And so there's a few additional requirements that fall in those areas.
Okay.
Let's see, let's continue. The downtown overlay that we're taking out, I said was going to downtown transitional district. And then the residential district that was created as part of the downtown transitional area to house existing residential detached structures that exist today will house that,
Okay.
be housed in that district. And then the I is institutional. We have schools or libraries, those type of uses. And then, of course, industrial, LI, light industrial, and HI, heavy industrial.
Thank you.
Sure. So let me get back to the presentation. Like I said, that table can be sent out to anyone. It's available online. And I'll show you a little bit later in the presentation where that is online. So let me go back. So as another part of the revisions for the UDO is monument signs standardization. With the Complete Streets coming on board to upgrade the sidewalks and the streets for the main drag through the core, the thing that Complete Streets wasn't going to address is sign replacement, sign standards. And for monument signs, we were looking for a low profile, but not making it too small to where you can't tell your story, can't tell your titles of your businesses or multiple units if multiple units are in there. So trying to get a look of the monument sign with a base and kind of a post column bordering the outside of this actual sign area. Those were the highlights and some of the UDO changes that will need to be put into place. There's a lot of other changes in the report, the staff report, and we'll post a copy of that you can pull out. It's already available in the agenda for this meeting, and a lot of it is also just changing names that are mentioned throughout the Unified Development Ordinance. So, the downtown rezoning. Rezoning request, of course, is to execute the report. And it's multiple parcels you'll see on the maps that we show, but approximately 532 acres are in the downtown. As I mentioned, DCD, Downtown Core District, DTD, Downtown Transitional District, DTD-R, Downtown Transitional Residential District. There are 2 parcels outside of the downtown area that were miszoned with Central Business District years ago. And that just needs to be cleaned up with an appropriate zoning. And so those 2 parcels is the same property owner, and neighborhood business district is an appropriate zoning for that.
All right. Ooh, okay. Testing, 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 testing. Okay. Thank you. Now I sound different. So as I mentioned, the parcels, there's the parcel numbers. Like I mentioned, neighborhood business district is the most appropriate for those two parcels that are currently central business district. And they sit outside the downtown along Old Monroe Road. So the zoning request intent is to provide a downtown core and provide two perimeter districts, providing transition from the exterior of the downtown into the downtown core. So that's the transitional and the transitional residential. Here are several maps that give you an image of, first of all, the aerial map showing the location. These maps can be pulled up, but there's several districts that are within these maps, but showing the core. Transitional is the blue, and then the yellow will be the transitional residential. There's also in this packet a current zoning map with those same outlines for those districts, but the land use that falls underneath those. I think some of the SF1, some of the ones that are showing up light, I think those are just SF1. The yellows can be really stubborn with either a printer or a projector, but if it's not a color and it looks white here, it's more than likely currently SF1. Now the current zoning, we kind of split those up just to show by themselves. Here's the core district, for example, shows the districts that fall and properties that fall just under the core. And then here is the downtown transitional district and shows you the parcels that go into that. And then the residential. These are the residential properties that had existing homes on them and went into the transitional residential. So, next steps, August 8th. Well, first, I believe there's going to be a continuance after, because of the advertising, there'll be a continuance before the adjournment or after, is it after the public speakers? There'll be a continuance by the board, and it'll continue to the August 15th planning board. So as the schedule for next steps goes, we have August 8th town council meeting, is an informal presentation that's currently scheduled. It's not a formal hearing. There's no advertising needed for it. It's just to do a beginning presentation to them.
Tim, I'd like to introduce one thing on that.
Sure.
I don't want people to get the impression that there's a specific timetable here
Okay,
for that. I mean, this is a suggested set of next steps,
certainly.
okay? But it is not at all the timetable that is being presented here. I think what I'd like to state is that we want to have plenty of time to understand this. This is a very large project. Again, as Tim has shared and Brandy has shared, this is at the request of the current town council that is asked to have the original plan, the master plan, updated from 2006. As you can do your math, that's quite a long time ago. So whatever was there is being used as a starting point to update it. But I just want to make sure everybody sitting here doesn't think that this is getting pushed through in a time period that may not be allowing for the analysis and the understanding of all this project and what does it mean to everyone in this room or those that are not in this room. And as chair, I've already talked to Brandy to let her know that my feelings are, I want to make sure that we have adequate time, because this planning board is made up of volunteers. We make no decisions. We make a recommendation to town council, and town council will do their own review after seeing the notes that we present to them like we do for any zoning request. So this process will take whatever it needs to be based on what I feel as a planning board needs to understand. We have two members that are not here tonight. We want to make sure that they have adequate time and the public, and you will have your time to ask questions. And as Brandy said earlier, if there's one-on-one time that is needed, they've already set that up so that can be taken care of tonight or started tonight for those people who have very specific questions. So the point is, you should feel really good that we want to take the time for you to understand it. This board wants to understand it, and eventually town council wants to understand it. It's all new to those of us sitting here that we just received this a few days ago. And I'm not going to sit here and make anybody think that we've reviewed it and have all the questions and all the understanding. Whenever these types of things happen, there's lots of rumors about what's going on, who's doing what, how's it going to impact us. We want you to have that information. You're due that information. Thank you, Tim.
Certainly. Yeah. This next step schedule was as I know it when I typed up the PowerPoint. So it's definitely, it's presented to the board, and then the board takes it from there. So thank you. So as we were thinking previously, if town council wants the information presentation and it continues, that's nothing formal. It's still with the planning board. That's not the formal meeting with them. But the August 15th date, that's our next interpretation of the next opening, and that's up to planning board. So, and then September 12th was the first chance after that there could be a town council hearing and decision. And so as the planning board makes decisions, it will ripple through and push the schedule as it needs to be pushed so that, council can digest this information, residents can digest it, but also we can continue to take calls and talk to people. We've all, been taking calls as they come in as staff and answering them. And, if somebody needs to come in and sit down with me at the computer, or any of Josue or Tyler or Brandy, we can make those appointments and do that, no problem. And we want to take that information and collect it and add it all up and go from there, because we've already incorporated some things and made some changes that are reflected in what's posted right now, but there could be other changes as we receive comments that come in. So, no, I don't want to push this down anyone's throat. I'm just taking this through the steps as we were directed and as we received the report from the consultant, and it's part of the process. Get public feedback and go from there. So, as I was mentioning, let's stay informed, let's collect comments, And there's, the website path there, indiantrail.org, and you can go under the planning tab. And under the planning tab at the top is the downtown master plan tab, and you can click on that, and it will show you this. And this is some frequently asked questions as you scroll down, but also on the right-hand side, you'll have some documents and links, and we're going to be adding more documents to that. On the upcoming meetings tab, once we continue from that, we may add a footnote in there and say, subject to change, something to footnote that. So this page is kind of evolving as we're moving through the process to keep providing and posting information. So back to this slide, comments or questions. Myself, I'm the staff member who's kind of collecting and have been, just following as the consultant, worked with Brandy, and I was kind of helped with tasks with that. And then we've all been digesting information as it's been coming in. And so you can contact myself, Brandy. There's also other planning department staff between Josue and Tyler that can help to answer questions for that. So let me see what I have now. Before adjournment, of course, is if you don't mind, the continuance or any other, comments, but I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. All right, so we'll have now the planning board members, any questions that we have, we'll go through those, and then we will have those that came in and signed up for the public comments. There are some people that came in maybe later. If somebody didn't sign up, I'd like to offer you that opportunity to come up to this front table and sign up right now so that you can have your 3 minutes to be able to ask questions that you might have tonight. So if anybody would like to do that, I'd like to encourage you to do that right now. We have a few people that have already signed up, correct? So please, if you came in late and would like to do that, this is your opportunity. This is your right to do that. Thank you. Anybody else? Feel free to jump up. And we'll have another break. I might have moved that. Thank you. Just get it out there. Yep, perfect. All right, so while everybody's finishing up that, planning board questions over there, start to my right.
I don't have any at this time.
Okay. To my left.
No, there's a lot of detail. I encourage everybody to go to those websites because there's a lot of detail that Tim was not able to go into tonight.
Cynthia?
I'm still observing and just taking it in. I want to hear what the people have to say and how the community feels about this project.
Okay. I have some questions. Tim, could you bring up the map, please? Thank you. The one that's got the city hall listed there. And so I saw this 2 days ago, so I'm not going to sit here and try to make you think I know what I'm looking at other than what I've read so far. Ask questions. So one of the first questions I have is this area that's outlined here, which is what we're talking about tonight, the rezoning effort for the master plan.
Yeah.
Can you highlight where the railroad tracks are?
Certainly.
I mean, they're right down the street from where we're at tonight.
I believe the railroad track runs right through there.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not looking at it.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so basically what I see when I first look at this is, and again, I don't have a a like or a dislike at this. I'm just asking questions.
Sure.
I look at that, and it divides that area right in half. So if you're talking about a downtown center, to me, when you look at other cities that are different than us, they might not have that division right in the middle of a proposed strategic, long-term decision. That's the first thing I see. So, you know, I'm just putting it out there to have it documented that that's a question that town council should really look into. I do not know of a disaster plan in this city today. I'm from Ohio originally. I've been grandfathered into North Carolina because I've been here over 15 years, saying that in jest. But in Ohio, if you remember, there was a train spill that really caused havoc for quite a while. So we're here about zoning, I get that, rezoning. But that, to me, is one of the first questions I ask is, how might that impact a major improvement that we all, many of us would like to see the city have a downtown section? My question is, though, is what happens if we would have a problem, even a derailment? I come over those tracks to come over here to Town Hall, and I pray every time that I'm not going to get stuck on the tracks or something else. So other than that, making that statement, that's my major question. Is there, I'll ask it as a question, Tim, is there anything on the planning about railroad tracks? The city of Indian Trail does not own those those railroad tracks or anything, but is there anything that's on the horizon from a plan for those railroad tracks to be altered?
No plans I know of to change the railroad tracks or the path of the railroad, because, you know, CSX and North Carolina Rail are pretty big beasts. And to even just to do the project to pave the center between the rails was a big effort. So, but as in emergency response, I think that's an excellent question. I think, you know, some of the things that our engineering director worked on with the consultant was some of these extra routes that you see in the dashed lines for, you know, if there was a blockage or if someone had to reroute, what are we missing? As in, not just normal traffic, but if, you know, if there's a blockage and for some reason, you know, what options do they have to do other things? Now, as far as, you know, emergency response plan, I'd have to defer that question to, of course, the county or the fire marshal, because they handle those plans separate from our department. So.
Yeah, and I wasn't talking about rerouting it, that's
Okay.
preposterous, but, you know, a bridge that would go over the road or, you know, some other
Yeah.
means. But you've
Yeah.
answered my question, because I know
Sure.
that's something that is a huge effort and beyond our availability here to understand how that might go. So.
If I could interject one thing, one of the components for Chestnut Extension that is going to take a little more time, but NCDOT is designing the flyover that's going to be over the tracks. So there'll be that one flyover at least. So.
Can you highlight where that is, Tim?
Certainly. So the extension, and I believe it will, of course, fly over the tracks there and run that way. And that's where we want most of the traffic to start to flow to from Main Indian Trail Road is we want the traffic to start, the pass-through traffic to start to divert to Chestnut Expressway and be handled in that area. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Sure.
Can you maybe highlight for everybody before we go to public comments, because that's where we're going to hear the meat of questions?
Sure.
The setback and that sort of thing on the main part of North Indian Trail Road, South Indian Trail Road. I mean, we saw the picture, it had a lot of graphics to it, you
Yeah.
know, from what might be proposed. But what's being proposed there? Can you just talk us through that? The road today, what would it possibly be if it is truly widened, if this proposal is accepted down the road?
Well, just the road portion, the complete streets portion for Phase 1 is designing everything, is putting in the roads and sidewalks, street lighting, and as a basic minimum through part of Indian Trail Road through the downtown. So that's done, this plan or not. That's already in place. So I don't know if that. Yeah.
Maybe for those that aren't aware of the transportation projects that are approved, funded, and underway. So you think of a downtown plan, and if you travel these roads and you see Indian Trail Road as a parking lot, you think, why in the world are you planning more development? One thing is that this plan is a 15 or 20-year plan. It will not affect development. Nothing that sits on the shelf is going to force development. No town has the ability. That's driven by the market. That's driven by folks wanting to sell their property, a lot of factors. But what this plan does is when that development does come naturally, it provides a framework to help us build the downtown that our citizens have said they wanted, our town council has said they wanted, that staff supports as well. But a part of project that's been in the works for years that you can't see as you're driving out there is this Chestnut Connector that Tim referred to. And so the idea is that the Chestnut Connector will be all that traffic with folks just trying to get through town, get back to Charlotte, and then Indian Trail Road will be converted as more of a true downtown. Folks that want to shop and dine and visit and work in our downtown. So that's sort of the framework of that. There's two portions of the Chestnut Connector. DOT's doing a portion, we're doing a portion. Ours will begin construction in a couple of months. DOT is planning to begin in June of next year. So that's actively underway. And then we've also got the Complete Streets project. So I just wanted to make sure you understand we have been and we are working on the transportation improvements. And in fact, Indian Trail Road has been a project for so long. We finally realized that maybe we just need to take it over from the state. So I'm really proud of our engineering department and our town council being willing to say, you know what, if we don't take this over, this might not get done. So we did take the road over and do own it now, and I think that that's really helping speed the process up.
Thank you.
Okay, good. Board, anybody last minute questions before we go to public comments? Can I have the list?
Yes, sir. I've got 5 speakers tonight.
5. All right, so I'd like to take a minute before we go into public comments. So I've written down some notes here to kind of help us all understand what this is for, because this meeting is for you tonight. It is for us and everybody to understand this more. So the rules of decorum. We all appreciate you being here tonight, communicating with the planning staff, which is Brandy's organization that's part of Town Hall, the planning board, which is made up of 7 volunteers, 5 that are here tonight, that I would like to reiterate what we represent here is the first part of the analysis to hear the presentation like we just did. And every month we have other proposals that come to the table that are presented for rezoning that we hear. And after we've heard whatever we've heard, asked our questions, we make a recommendation of approval or non-approval that goes forward to town council in one of their upcoming meetings. They then do their due diligence to ask questions and determine if that project is a logical, approvable project and it goes forward to the town manager and other people to make it happen. So this is just that process. I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. The process that we'll use, that we always use every night, but we have several people that have asked to speak, and that's great. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. Now, what we did was we actually set up the sheet here with 3 separate sheets, but it's really one project. So several of you have signed up for one or more of the pages. So what I'd like to suggest is, so you don't get shortchanged, I guess, is to give those people, and I'll let them know as they have their time, that you'll have more than 3 minutes for those people that signed up for more than one page. Okay? Good? Sound fair? Lots of nodding going on out there. Been a long day, I know. Bear with us. Yes?
In some cases, it's good to have the 3 separate 3 minutes because you can ask some questions at the beginning. Which
Okay,
you might get
we can do
answered
that.
Before your second time up and your third time up.
We can do that. Great suggestion. Everybody okay with that? Good? Everybody had dinner? I didn't either. Yeah, okay, good. My wife says I shouldn't have dinner anyway. Okay, so the first sheet was the downtown rezoning, ZM 2023-0098. Is that the way I should, actually the master plan was really the first one, so let's go with the master plan update. Okay? Change the order here. Okay, so on that first page, we had 2 people sign up. So Dan Schallenkamp, it's your turn, sir. And the light switch is here. I'd like you to kind of follow that if you would, please. And let me just say one more thing before Mr. Schallenkamp goes ahead and speaks. We ask that the audience maintains order, decorum, respect for the person that's speaking. We also ask for tonight specific questions related to your property. If you have, again, specific questions that maybe aren't appropriate in front or you don't want to ask in front of people, Brandy's staff has people outside. As you go out this door and go to the right, there will be somebody out there to be in a one-on-one situation with you. And again, I just want to reiterate again, bear with me, we are under no timetable to complete our analysis and or make a recommendation to town council. So I wanted everybody to be crystal clear about that. I don't care if it takes 9 meetings before we come out of planning board, before we make a recommendation to town council. If it takes 9 meetings, I will be happy to do that and ask Brandy and her staff to help us with that. So, Mr. Schallenkamp.
Thank you, Mr. Dukes. Thank you, Planning Board. I know you're citizen volunteers and you don't get a whole lot of thanks, so thank you. And Chairman Dukes, you run a very good meeting. I really appreciate it. So I looked at this briefly for a couple hours before I came over here, and I'll just go ahead and kind of rattle off a couple of things that I'd like answers on. First of all, I know the town council approved the study and the changes for the UDO. I'm really interested in knowing what other feedback the Indian Trail Council gave with that instruction. Did they set any guardrails to say, look at it at this aspect? Did they set any of those 4 principles that I saw, or did they simply say, go revamp the plan? That would be of great interest to me. What other instructions council gave? I didn't know densify was a word. Your first principle of this project has the word densify in it. Densify the downtown. How many citizens of Indian Trail want a denser town as opposed to a more livable town? That's just an open-ended question. I personally really don't like one of your 4 principles is to attract younger professionals. And where's the 65 and older professionals? Where's the middle-aged professionals? Let's change that one principle to be more inclusive, age-wise. I'm very weary of the no minimum lot areas. I read in here, and I hope it's a mistake on my part, but I read max building heights 75 to 100 feet in height. I'd like to see that, not now, but I'd like to see that rendering and show me which of those buildings is 100 feet tall in the rendering, because the public needs to see that for full disclosure. Show me a 100-foot tall building in that next round of renderings. Can the local volunteer fire departments get a ladder 100 feet in the sky? I know the answer to it. I'd like to hear it from the town what the answer is. Can they get it safely up to 100 feet? What recourse does a property owner in this area have if they do not wish to be rezoned? What is their recourse? What are their rights? Is this a rezone that's forced, or is it voluntary? And I have so many other questions. That's why I look forward to my next set of 3 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is John Hemby, the master plan update question. Mr. Hemby?
Again, my name's John Hemby. I've actually been a resident of Indian Trail for a little over 71 years. And my concerns, Schellenkamp's mentioned several of them, but under the maps, I've been told that I'm in the core plan for my residential property. And I know I'm in the core plan for my business because I got a business here in Indian Trail. I have a residency in Indian Trail. So I'd like someone to put in writing what's what as far as whether I'm in the core plan or not, because that determines what you call the downtown traditional residential. And I'm not really sure how to interpret that as far as taxes go. And I understand that under the plan we would be grandfathered in, but how far does that grandfather clause go? Would that go to my immediate family in case I'm deceased or not? And then I reckon I'll have to get with Tim on this, is getting the information as far as what the use plan would be under the traditional if we go commercial, okay, on that part. And also under the master plan, if I understand what's going on, we're going to have the road construction to eliminate the traffic in downtown Indian Trail. And if I understand, the town owns the property from Chestnut Parkway to the railroad, or vice versa. So is the DOT going to build that road? And are we going to pay for it? And how much is that going to cost? That's not presented in any of this information. And also the bridge. Who's going to pay for that? And how long is it going to take? And also the railroad. So again, who is going to expense all of this? I've been here, as I said, this many years. I've been told for 20 years that we're going to expand Indian Trail Road. And if I understand the diagrams, you're going to put sidewalks 10 feet on each side of the road. And if I understand, there's a 30-foot right-of-way. And if you do that, it looks like you're going to take away several of the businesses in downtown Indian Trail that are already here. And in looking at all this, and I like the answer to it, is there a potential that if you approve this, that somewhere down the road the churches will be eliminated in downtown Indian Trail? I think that needs to be addressed if that's going to happen. And so I reckon that's my 3 minutes of what I need to understand. And I disapprove of this plan at this time. There needs a lot more discussion on it.
I agree, sir. Thank you, Mr. Hemby. Staff, do you want to answer as we go through questions, or do you want to compile those and then have any answers afterwards? What's the best way?
Well, you might answer somebody else's question
question, if you go ahead and answer it once, you might not have to, somebody will say that same thing.
I think for individual questions, Mr. Hemby and I had a conversation, so I think he has that information. We'll be glad to get that in writing to him. I took down a few notes, and what I will say is that the road construction projects are not a part of this plan. They are approved, funded, ready to break ground. That is not a part of this plan at all. It's already been through the official public process and underway. Our engineering department can happily walk you through all the details of those plans if you would like. Our Director of Engineering, Todd Huntsinger, is here tonight. Feel free to grab him and get more details or contact his staff as well. But it's not included in what this board is considering. I will say that we are not trying to eliminate churches. Churches are a foundation of a lot of the downtowns. We don't really have a historic downtown. We don't have a framework. But the one thing we do have is we have 2 older churches that I think are very important to our downtown. What we don't necessarily want to see is a storefront church that pops up and takes critical space. So our goal in creating a downtown is really to activate the street. We want to see pedestrian oriented. We want to see things that are open after 5 for folks to come down and visit and eat and dine and shop. So a storefront church really does take a lot of the air out of that sale of that shopping center. So that is in the current permitted uses. Of course, this is ultimately up to Planning Board's recommendation and Town Council. But we have no intent to eliminate anything. So any land use that is going on, whether it's your single-family structure and you've lived in Indian Trail for 40 years, we are happy to have you live there for 40 more years. Everything that is an existing use is automatically grandfathered regardless of what zone you're in. So we are not forcing anyone out, whether you're a church, a commercial use, or a residential property. And I'll be happy to answer any other questions maybe that there are as we go through. Thank you.
Okay, let's move to the second page, which is the second part of the proposal. That is ZT 2023-0098, Downtown UDO Amendments. We had 2 people signed up to speak or ask questions about that. Dan Schellenkamp, you're on the floor, sir.
Thank you. I failed to really introduce myself before. I was on the town council in 2006.
Move
What?
that up so we can hear you a little bit.
But then the next poor soul has to. I was on the town council in 2006 when we created the first UDO. So it was a very important tool. At the time, I believe the town of Indian Trail had simply adopted Union County's development standards and did a massive search and replace of where it said Union County, they replaced it with Indian Trail. So the first UDO was a big improvement for the citizens over that. So I believe in the UDO process. There was mention of the stakeholders meeting. I saw the pictures online with the little red sticky dots, which I did in my professional life a lot. I'd be really interested to know how many individuals took part in that meeting, how many were present, and how many participated in the sticky dot exercise. Did we get, I want to make sure we got adequate public input early in the process, and I really love the fact that we're not going to rush this, and we're going to get plenty of input tonight and future nights. I'm almost concerned that there was a tentative date on that timeline where the council was going to have a meeting about it before the planning board completed their process. And I guess if it's just a initial informational meeting, that's okay. But you folks could make some very good recommendations that could change it in good ways. Why not have the council wait till that process is complete? Is there any kind of ratios of residential versus commercial business in this new proposed plan? And going along with that, how many high-density residences are already within this footprint that we see on the map here? How many apartments, townhomes, whatever else we would consider high density? How many are already on the ground? How many are already approved and not yet built, but will probably be built soon? My point being, if we had a ratio, what should it be? Should it be 50% residential, 50% commercial, or business? And where are we today in that ratio with the current high density that's on the ground or has already been approved and not yet built? If we don't have a goal ratio, why not? We should have one. If a property owner has, say, 2 lots today that are single family, they do lose a right. If we set them to this new downtown zone, I assume that they cannot build a second single-family home in their lot beside them. I'd like somebody to answer that. Thank you.
All right, our second speaker tonight on the UDO amendments is Donna Hosa. And Donna, I didn't want to say your last name wrong.
No, Donna Hassefluke.
Oh, thank you.
You're quite welcome.
All right, and make sure, turn that so we can all hear you, please.
How's that?
Wonderful.
Perfect. I'd like to thank you. I see they started the time. I'd like to thank you for your time, and I'd like to thank you for taking our time. I think it's great to have a dream, a vision, but sometimes reality has to set in to what it is that you have to work with. I, too, like Mr. Hemby, was born and raised in Indian Trail, as my 94-year-old mother was born and raised in Indian Trail. So I have a little bit of history here. A vision's great, but when reality, you have to look at what buildings are already here, what structures have been here for a long time, and what you have to work with, and what the property owner wants to do with them. I personally have 5 commercial properties that are within the core district. And I was not invited to the shareholders meeting, stakeholders meeting, as far as input. I have been involved with the Complete Street project, and I'd like to answer some of the questions that people had about that. We've been working on that since 2016, isn't that right? 2016 was a whole different cast of characters here then, but 16. So at that time, it's 2022. They just got NCDOT approval last month. They've been working on that for a couple of years. They just got that last month. So now they have to start the process of acquiring property. So to acquire that property, they have to have appraisals. I've dealt with the Old Monroe Road extension. I've got 2 commercial properties on that. Heard from them in 2002, oh, we've got permission to do this. I'm supposed to get my first appraisal report this week on the second property. So it's not ready to go. We still probably have 2 or 3 more years from my past experience before that project even starts. So I'd really like to see that project started before this project gets on the ground, because it's going to take 10 or 15 years for that. It's nice to have a vision, but sometimes you have to take a step back to make sure that you're making the right move at the right time. You don't want to get ahead of the ball game, and I think that's what they're doing. And the Central Business District on this is really becoming the new core district with a few changes in the zoning and a few of the permitted uses changes. And when I come back for the next 3 minutes, I'll delve more into those questions. Thank you.
All right, our third session on ZM 2023-0098 downtown rezoning, which was presented by Tim Jones. We have 5 speakers. Again, we'll ask you to state who you are if you haven't spoken already, or if you have, that would be great. Start with Jay Ross.
I got my answer already.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anita Heather?
Really? I
That-
really do not like speaking in public.
That's all right. Well, thank you for being here and taking the time. You're among friends.
Oh, yeah, sure, okay. No, I really just have a few things. I know I've gone back and forth with Mr. Cook several times. The whole widening of Indian Trail Road, I don't know any of that background. I don't know what was voted on, so is that supposed to go all the way to 74? Is that going to alleviate right there in front of Ashland subdivision? That's kind of the question that I have. And then the other thing would be, I've kind of gotten several different answers. Some other neighbors have called in and gotten kind of different answers because we've been kind of just pooling our information together. We have been pooling our information together as far as the questions that we've had answered from you guys, so some of them is different. I'm just trying to make sure that the Ashland subdivision is going to be zoned where everything that's there now is permitted. Nothing is going to be a non-conforming use. Because when you start talking non-conforming uses, yes, you can use it, it's grandfathered in, but there's a whole lot of other stuff that goes with it, that's limitations, and I do not want that to be something that's going to limit me as a property owner. So I would like to have that kind of, I guess, in writing, because a lot of this stuff is a little bit confusing. And I'm sure that eventually that field behind us is going to be bought, is going to be used for something else. So I want to know if there's any kind of, things that are going to be put in place where there's buffer areas that are going to have to be adhered to and that kind of thing. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, can I address her comments briefly?
Did I what?
Can I address her comments briefly?
Sure, please.
Thank you. Okay. Quickly on the Ashland subdivision, Ashland is largely the reason why we chose to add that additional district. We did not want to add additional burdens, immediately change things for you, increase your taxes, anything like that. So I hate to inform you, but you're already in non-conforming as an SF1. So this change is actually helping you get closer to being in compliance. But there's no new non-conformings. This should not affect your taxes. It shouldn't affect your land use. And as a subdivision, a fully platted subdivision, the chances of every single one of you and your neighbors wanting to sell out at the right price to one mass developer is just going to be so extremely rare. So I really feel like you have the benefit of being, the only established subdivision in downtown that, as development occurs, you get to reap the benefits of the increased property values, but also reap the benefits of having, restaurants or shops that are close by to you. But your impact from Ashland, you're getting a fancy new title for a residential district, but you're still a residential district. You're not becoming any more non-conforming than you already are. It's actually improving. So definitely want to give you confirmation on that. If you want to reach out to us, we have already issued specific letters to individual property owners. If you want it in writing, let us know. We'll be glad to do so for you. As far as the buffers, that property likely will develop. That is the reality. Most folks don't want to just leave their land vacant and pay taxes forever. So there are buffer requirements that are in place in our UDO right now that will require them to buffer from you because you are single family. So that is a guarantee that there will be a buffer in place for you. And then the other question was road improvements, and I'm going to pass the mic over to the expert on that.
I guess I'll stand so y'all can see me. The phase one of Complete Street is actually from Gribble Road to Liberty Lane. Does everybody know where Liberty Lane's at, right near the sanctuary? All right, like Ms. Husaflute mentioned, it was started in 2016. Well, I want to give you a little bit of a history lesson real quick. It was started as a pedestrian-friendly project, safety fund project with the federal government. We got federal funds for it. Unfortunately, the curveball that happened, and a lot of these property owners already know this that I've had meetings with, is the fact that you had the town center decide they wanted to develop, which is the big one right in the middle of town that has the apartments right now. That is a by right. It was approved, I don't know, 07, 08 timeframe. 2005, okay. So that came on, they wanted to start doing that. Well, then the next curveball was Atrium Hospital, which is in Stallings. Well, that has impacts to this roadway as well. And so what we had to do, we had to back up, decided we had to change the whole design because you're going to have to do, both of those developers have to do their own transportation improvements. They had to do their own traffic study, everything. Well, what we did as a town, and if you wasn't at the public meeting, you didn't get to see the nice renderings we had, but we do have renderings showing exactly what it's going to look like, but we had to add those improvements in there. So that downtown intersection at Matthews Indian Trail Road and Indian Trail Road, you're going to have left turn lanes all 4 sections. I mean, it's going to be a massive improvement of that intersection. You're going to have a roundabout at the town center because we couldn't put anything else because we have a railroad in the middle of downtown. So, you know, there's a massive improvements now. It went from a pedestrian-friendly safety project to get sidewalks and curb on a downtown because we don't have sidewalks and curb on downtown. So we wanted to do that. Well, unfortunately, the domino effect happened with development. That was one was by right and one was approved by Stallings. And so now we have a project, and that's why it took so long. Now we have a project that's fully designed, going in the right of way right now, and hopefully, in my view, will start actually being constructed sometime next year in the calendar year. Hopefully, if the right of way goes, it's better than I thought. Then DOT can get right of way done. Let's say that. So now we have not a fully funded approved. We have an approved project, but it's not fully funded yet because we don't know what this costs. But we have Phase 2 Complete Street. Phase 2 Complete Street is filling the gaps. You're going from Liberty Lane to 74, right? And then you're going from Gribble Road back to Olmer Road. Now, we're not going all the way to Olmer Road because Olmer Road widening project is going to do that intersection improvement. So we're going to go all the way to Brewster's Ice Cream, which I'm sure y'all know where that's at. So we're going to tie into their design. So right now, that's being designed by us. We have 25% plans, and we're moving through the process, and that's going to take a while because that's a bigger project. And we need to get a cost assessment done and all that, and we don't have that yet. But yes, that's in the works as well. But as far as moving back for a second, Chestnut Parkway, that is fully funded. DOT is fully funding the overpass over this railroad track that's going right beside this town hall. It's a fully funded project by DOT. We're going to tie into that from what we call in Phase 3, which is, I'm not sure if y'all know or not, we did fully fund this parkway that's built out right there right now. That's a fully town-funded parkway. Well, the plan was DOT does the hard part, which is the overpass on the railroad tracks, and then we do our other side. Well, that's what we're doing now. That's going to get bidded out here probably about a month. It'll be advertised in a month. Hope of breaking ground in October. DOT probably won't break ground. They'll let their project in January. They probably won't break ground probably till March, June, like Brandy said. But that is moving forward, and that is not stopping. So that when now all that gets tied in, we'll be DOT will probably be halfway in their project when we start the Complete Street project. So all this is going to go on at the same time. Unfortunately, I can't help that. But the improvements will be there in a few years. So, and then hopefully Union County figures out the sewer problem and we might actually do some development around here.
I do quickly want to just have our senior planner, Tyler Hayesky, address the issue on conflicting information. Sometimes it's hard to trust government, it's harder to trust developers, and I just want to make sure that you understand where we're coming from and where that conflict came in at.
Hey, Tyler Hayesky. I think I spoke with Anita a couple weeks ago.
You're the name that I couldn't remember.
I'm the name. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. Yeah, no. I think one thing that Tim spoke on earlier, and that was we wanted public input. Yes, we had the stakeholder meeting initially, then we put out a draft of the downtown master plan. And from that, there were some unforeseen issues that we didn't think of. And one of those was the residential component with non-conforming properties, specifically Ashland. We had a ton of phone calls from Ashland, which is good. We wanted to hear back from y'all, and I think initially y'all were some of the first people that reached out to us when there was just two proposed zoning district, and that was the downtown core district and then the downtown transitional district. When Ashland was originally considered as part of the transitional district, then that meant that there was the opportunity to have businesses allowed by right in your neighborhood. And so we went back as a staff, met with a consultant, and then talked about it after some of those initial conversations to create the DTD-R, which is the downtown residential, or downtown transitional residential district that allows for single-family residential structures that are still in the study area to be permitted by right. That way, not every structure is non-conforming. So that's where a little bit of that disparity was due to staff receiving comments and actually listening to the residents as far as what their concerns were and trying to mitigate those. So I just want to clarify that. Thank you.
Because I was beginning to think I might be going crazy.
No, you're good.
So we have three more people to speak that signed up. I don't want to get this started, but I did see a hand back there. Sir, did you have a question, a quick question from a follow-up here? Would you come to the front, please? Oh, can you not do that? I mean, are you okay?
Just a problem with my right leg. Question I have is about Chestnut Lane. Where is that traffic supposed, when that gets extended, where's that traffic going to dump? Is it going to dump on Old Monroe Road, or going to dump on Gribble Road, or what?
Sir, may I ask you to please state your name for the record?
John Moore.
Thank you.
So not to get too detailed, but once the overpass is done, you're going to have a roundabout at Gribble that actually DOT is going to build. So you have a roundabout at Gribble that we will tie into. But yes, they'll be able to dump on Gribble Road and dump on Omer Road, as you say it, put a dump. Yes.
Traffic on Gribble Road has tremendously increased since 74 was altered.
Yeah.
There may be 3 times as much traffic on it now as there was before.
On Omer Road, you're saying?
No, Gribble.
Gribble.
We can't hardly get out of our driveway at lunch.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the way DOT looks at roadways, and Gribble is a DOT roadway, is if you're not around 18,000 average daily traffic, then you're not really going to be considered to do a widening or anything like that if that's where you're going at, because I think Gribble's probably 4,000 cars a day at most. So, yeah, I mean, there's just not going to be any improvements on Gribble for a long time, is what I'm getting at, if that's what you're asking.
Are you talking about to get out onto Indian Trail?
I'm talking about to be able to go back and forth to our office, to be able to get out of Gribble Road onto Indian Trail Road.
Now, Gribble and Indian Trail Road, you will have a signalized intersection there. There will be a signal put there based on the Complete Street project that we're doing. So you will have a light there to help that situation out, yes.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. And you'll have a couple of extra lanes. We were not putting any additional laneage on South Fork or Gribble, but we are putting turn lanes on the Indian Trail Road portion. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Todd, for that detail there very much. All right, so we have three more people. Sadana Hasafluk, you're back up.
So as far as the zoning goes, being the owner of commercial property, that was very important for me to know what the permitted uses were going to be and what was going to be eliminated. So I requested Tim, and he sent to me the table of permitted uses. And so, of course, I look first at my property and what my tenant uses are. I own the old post office. Y'all probably don't remember where the old post office was. It's not the original post office, but it was the one built in the 80s. It now houses a church. So I immediately go and look at the chart provided, and I see that religious assembly was permitted but it's no longer going to be permitted in the core district. It's right here. Y'all can see it for yourselves. Then I continued looking. I said, well, if we have 2 really nice old historical churches, so that means the 3 of them, if something were to happen to those buildings, they're non-conforming use, we won't have any churches in the core district. So then I kept looking, well, the bank, Truist Bank is right there. So I start looking at the bank. Well, they don't want banks in the core district that have drive-through windows. So that's going to be eliminated, crossed off. No drive-through window banks in the core district. So I did witness several years ago a truck run through the window overhang at the Truist Bank, and it was destroyed, needless to say, and they were able to build it back. But are they going to be able to build that back if that happens again? Because it could indeed happen again. So that would be a non-conforming use. Another question I have is the tax increases for those residential. We talked about the buildings being at least 2 to 6 stories. That's where you're coming up with your 75 to 100 feet. And you're going to have no setbacks on those tall buildings right at the street. It's going to change the whole look of the downtown area, and I don't think in a positive way. It's going to be more like a tunnel than it is going to be an open, pedestrian-friendly walk, as they describe in there. And who's funding these right-of-way acquisitions? The proposed road extensions, I think, look really nice, but who's going to fund that? Oh, and the Boy Scout Lodge. I have a question or not whether the Boy Scout Lodge is going to be permitted, because it says in there lodges are not going to be permitted. So evidently, if something were to happen to the building that the Boy Scout Lodge is in, which has been there a long time, what's going to happen? Is a non-conforming use? Those are the things that bother me. And that's why I don't think that this is a good plan for Indian Trail. Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. Okay, next speaker on the UDO, the downtown rezoning is John Hemby. John?
I believe Donna raised most of the questions I was going to ask under this section, and I do think that I need to get with Tim and Brandy. Can I get a copy of the 175 to 100 page of the report? Would you give me a copy of that? And about the traditional residential, based on what you're saying, I have a lot of road frontage on Indian Trail Road. And based on phase 2, you would take a big chunk of my front yard. Luckily, my house is way far back enough that it wouldn't bother that part. But the uses of that property, I think, was mentioned. You have a copy of what that is. But being a longtime resident of Indian Trail, I'm like Donna. I think we're doing a dream as I look at it currently. And if you don't get the infrastructure done first, what's the use of putting these buildings in downtown Indian Trail? I'm like John Moore. I have a business right there at the railroad track. I have to go right to go left. Can't get out. After 1 o'clock in the evening, it's not possible. So that's a big concern that I would have on that part. And we talk about widening the road. I didn't see in the plans that you're actually going to widen the actual Indian Trail Road. What you're doing is putting sidewalks in that are going to take up most of all that portion. So what's it still going to do with the downtown traffic? And the point being made is the red dots up there are proposed roads to alleviate the traffic in downtown. Is the plan to put the Parkway in first, use all the money there? Or are you going to try to propose some of these streets to offset the traffic in downtown road of Indian Trail. Since I live in downtown Indian Trail, right there in front of the Indian Trail School, you know, the traffic is atrocious in the afternoons, and it's atrocious in the mornings. So if we don't get the sewer, the water, we're definitely not going to get the building done. And if you don't do the roads first, what's the use of putting the buildings in? That's pretty much all I got to say.
Thank you, Mr. Hemby. And our last speaker on the downtown rezoning is Dan Schoenkamp.
All right, third time's a charm. I don't know the answer to this question, but I would caution property owners within the district. I've heard some good information tonight about trying to, I assume, initially have little or no impact on your taxes. Are there any protections for the next countywide reevaluation, property tax reevaluation, which I believe, I need to check, but I believe it's coming in the next 24 months? If council adopts this, and you're in one of these today, single-family SF1s, I get that the new residential piece of this district, the transitional residential, will protect you day one from a tax increase. Won't the county, when they reevaluate, look at that new district and say, everything in here is much more valuable now because of the rezoning? Therefore, do you have any protection for after the next reevaluation? Will your property values go up by 25% like everybody else's, or more than 25%? That would be a key concern of mine if I'm living within this blue line today. Let's see. I tried to check off the ones I already did. Oh, we've got a railroad track that runs through the middle of town. We see it as a liability in a lot of cases. I see it as a liability. You know, splits the downtown in half. The potential for a derailment. We absolutely need to talk to our elected officials. What is the emergency plan for evacuating everything in the blue area if we have a derailment? I believe the county handles emergency preparedness at that level. I'm sure the town adopts that policy. The policies put out by the county, but we, as all citizens, we need to be concerned about that. You know, what is that? We need to get eyes on that policy. Why aren't we looking at the railroad track as an asset? Clean, light industrial that bring good, high-paying wages. Why aren't we advertising the town of Indian Trail as one of the last few urban areas where we would invite light industrial, a shipping company, something, you know, I'll go back to clean, light industrial that brings good, high-paying jobs, or good, skilled job labor. Where is the plan to do that with our asset of the railroad corridor? You know, I don't think it's an asset for residential. I think it's an asset that should be marketed properly to bring in jobs. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Schoenkamp. So that concludes the public comments section. Did you have anything that you needed to address, Brandy, or anybody else on staff?
Sure. We certainly don't want to get into debates with opinions, so I'm going to leave some of that alone. But I do want to make sure that everyone in the room realizes the reason that this third district was created was to solve that tax issue. When we heard from Union County and they said, we're going to consider the valuation of the property based on commercial, regardless of whether someone's living there in a single-family structure, we immediately said, we don't care how great this plan is, that is not our intent at all. So that's the reason you have that third district. We've been in communication with Union County tax assessors. We've had conversations with how they value property. Of course, there's a lot of factors, but creating that downtown residential district did solve the problem for the tax concern. Now, there is a reevaluation coming up. That's completely separate. Properties all over town and all over the county will be reevaluated, but you will be based on a residential district, not commercial. And that is the reason why we've been working late at night trying to make changes to this plan to ensure we didn't have that impact on you. The light industrial, what I do want to share is that as a town, we have a very healthy percentage of commercial light industrial to residential. Contrary to what you will hear or what you may see coming out of the ground, a lot of our light industrial is hidden in our industrial parks. You can go and see approved projects on the website, indiantrail.org. We have a development projects page and map. Tyler and Josue work tirelessly on that, where you can see all the projects, and we consistently have multiple light industrial projects in the queue. They do want to be in the existing industrial parks or around the bypass, so we're happy and pleased with that growth. That's very important for the town. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
I'm going to allow another question there. Donna, you had another question as a follow-up?
Yes, as a follow-up to the light industrial.
Can you come to the microphone, please?
As a follow-up to the light industrial balance that we have or don't have here in Indian Trail, I own the property around the Monroe Bypass that's on the other side of Highway 74. I had a group that wanted to buy 34 acres. I've got approximately 150 acres. I had a group that wanted to buy 34 acres. They went through the process, loved the area. They were going to employ about 500 people in Indian Trail. It would be tax revenue for the town of Indian Trail. Everything was all go, go, go until there's no sewer. 12 Mile Creek is at capacity, and there's nothing in the works in order to expand or build another sewer treatment plant. So yeah, there's a lot of industrial land out there, but it's land. It's not generating any tax revenue. It cannot be developed. Trust me, if I could sell it, I would love to. And talk about working with the tax office. So I informed the tax assessor's office as soon as it was determined that there's no sewer available, it can't be developed. So they should reduce the value of it, right? No. Sorry, we can't do that. You have to wait to the next revaluation. So that's how it is working with the tax assessor's office in Union County. Just beware. So firsthand experience. What I'd love to see the town do is get behind a sewage treatment facility. There's a lot of industrial land, not just what I own, but others around, that could be developed, and it would be great for the town. It would bring so much revenue, and industrial property doesn't burden any responsibilities to the town. They don't have to provide garbage service. They don't have to, do as much patrolling with the sheriff's department. There are less amount of expenses involved with the industrial property. So get behind a sewage treatment plant. Get behind Union County and say, let's joint venture to expand this 12 Mile Creek. Let's do something to bring the businesses to that industrial area. Thank you for the time. I appreciate it.
I asked a similar question a couple of years back, and somebody's over there smiling. I said, why are we taking all this time to look at all these projects, and there isn't sewer capacity? It isn't Indian Trails and the planning board and the planning department's job to, consider that. We consider the rezoning request, the projects that come before, planning board, and then where they go after that to town council and a recommended or non-recommended. But I understand your point, your question is very well taken. So we've, I think, given everybody a chance multiple times to ask their questions. It's getting late. I hope that you have heard what the intent here is. So when you hear rumors out there that this is getting fast-tracked or whatever, that is not true. I've said it before. and I will hold to my promise that it'll take whatever it takes to get through this. Again, we're going to spend our time and planning board due diligence and as volunteers to ask questions, to get that documented. All this is documented in public record, and it'll be available. There's a lot of really good information that the planning department, Brandy's department, and Todd's department, and others have put together. As she already mentioned, I'd encourage you to go out there, look at the website, indiantrail.org, look at all that material. There's a lot of material out there. I know everybody has their own specific requests on what they want to have or what their questions are. Please do that. Please attend our next meeting that was shown to you in August. We meet once a month as a planning board. Come back to that meeting. Call Brandy, ask for a one-on-one. You've got lots of opportunity to get your questions answered. That's what this is all about. It's for you, for us, to get Indian Trail to be the kind of city with the growth that we are all looking for, the right kind of growth. So I want to just thank you all for being here. I'd like to go ahead and ask for a motion to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to continue this meeting. State law does require that we do legal ads, which aren't necessarily the best way to reach the public, which is why we sent you letters. But the ads are very, very expensive, and in the interest of taxpayers, we'd ask that you recess this so that we don't have to put another expensive ad in it.
For that. So it's a recess versus an adjournment. Thank you. Appreciate that. So are we good? We have concluded our meeting tonight with a recess?
Yes.
Correct. Okay.
We
Thank
need
you
it.
very much, everybody,
I'm sorry,
for
we
being out
need it.
here. Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry. One more
Dukes.
question?
No, Mr. Dukes over here. We need a second
Yeah.
to.
I'll second.
Thank you.
Oh. Thank you very much. All right. Thank
And if
you,
we could just clarify that we're recessing it to the August 15th, just so that everyone's aware. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming out.